Hello and welcome or welcome back to my self-titled YouTube channel. I'm the eponymous Fiona. Thank you for joining me today as we take a deep dive into Hayley from Stardew Valley. We are going to be talking about her likes, her dislikes, her heart events, her dialogue, her arc, everything we can talk about when it comes to Hayley. If you haven't played Stardew Valley, you don't know what heart event is, I do recommend that you go back and watch the first video in this series where I covered Alex. In that video I talk through everything you need to know about Stardew Valley if you don't play it. Although you probably play it, most people seem to play it that watch these. This is video number 5 in the series, so you can always go back and watch the other ones if you like it. Since the last video I filmed, I have gotten a lot of subscribers. A lot for me. I guess not for Mr. Beast, but a lot for me. It's too much pressure. It really means a lot to me. I've never been a person who posts on social media. I've never done anything like this before. I'm too embarrassed to post on Instagram even though it's private. So to be getting nice feedback is, I don't know, I think it's just doing me good in my soul. So thank you. My original plan with this series was to just make one really long video, but then I started writing it and my Alex script was 11,000 words and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And now, since every video is at least an hour, I think the final video of all of them together would be 15 hours. And I am still planning on doing that. The plan in my head is to make the individual video for all of the 12 characters and then put it into one big super cut, a 15-hour video. Because that's my shit, I love watching those. You know, Quentin reviews type insanely long videos. I'm telling you this because when I make that video, it does mean that I can go in and add anything I've missed. For example, I've had some really interesting comments on the Abigail video. Number 1 about how bars work differently in America. And also about her hair color, how her hair color could have changed. So just for an example, when I make the big, long 15-hour video, I'll go in and be update. So if I get anything wrong in any of these videos, you can let me know and I can always change it. You can't seem to edit videos that are already uploaded. Maybe you can, but I just don't have access to it yet. I don't know. Anyway, God, this feels weird. Anyway, let's get into it. Time for Hayley.
Lisa, I'd like you to meet Alex Whitney.
Your name's Lisa? Shut up! I love that name!
Did she just tell me to shut up?
Take it outside.
So like the other videos, we're going to start off with Hayley's synopsis from the devlog. Being wealthy and popular throughout high school has made Hayley a little conceited and self-centered. She has a tendency to judge people for superficial reasons. But is it too late for her to discover a deeper meaning to life? Is there a fun, open-minded young woman hidden within that candy-coated shell? Candy-coated shell. She's like a sexy M&M. So in the last video we covered Emily, and we mentioned a few times that Emily has a little sister called Hayley. This is Hayley. The same one. So yeah, Hayley is Emily's younger sister. They live together in the house that was left in their care by their parents, who are travelling. Hayley does not make a good first impression. When you first meet her, she says, "Oh, you're that new farmer boy, aren't you?" "Huh? Oh, I'm Hayley." If it weren't for those horrendous clothes, you might actually be cute." And if you're a girl and you talk to her, she says, "You might actually be pretty." So she's got this kind of mean girl vibe to her, right? If you're a girl, she has a line of dialogue. "Nice makeup. Wait, are you even wearing any? I'm bored." And you could argue that this is her complimenting you because it's "Wow, you're so beautiful, I thought you were wearing makeup." But if you're a boy, this specific line changes to, "Nice shoes. Are those made out of plastic? I'm bored." So I think we can interpret the tone of this as kind of "Nice shoes. Are those made out of plastic? I'm bored." Acting. But we'll talk more about this in a moment. But I'm just saying your first impression of Hayley is usually quite negative. She's quite archetypal as a character. You know, she has a lot of those kind of mean girl aspects to her. She talks a lot about clothes and doing her hair and going shopping and getting a tan, things like that. I feel the urge to go shopping. If you stay in the sun a lot, it will make your hair lighter. It's a good thing to know. I've decided I'm going to organise my clothes today. I'll have to throw out all of last year's styles to make room for the new ones.
With her perfume and her cell phone.
And she also has this strong aversion to nature and the outdoors. Is that a grass stain on your knee? Sorry, I'm allergic to grass. I've never been to the forest. It's muddy and I could get a blister on my foot. Iconic, honestly. So overall, the vibe we get from Hayley is kind of similar to the vibe we got from Alex. A bit superficial, mostly concerned with surface level things. In terms of Hayley and Alex's relationship, I talked about this a lot in Alex's video, but they've got this kind of friendship, kind of not friendship. I saw on the subreddit people referring to them as exes, but I don't know where that comes from. Because at the start of the game, they're still interested in each other. Hayley tells you, "I wonder what Alex is doing today." "Huh? I didn't notice you standing there. Will you say hi to Alex for me? Thanks." And then as your relationship progresses with her, she goes through that same change that Alex went through. When you're closer to her, she tells you, if you see Alex, could you tell him I'm busy today? Thanks. So I think they're in this kind of flirty, will they, won't they situation. Maybe kind of a situationship. I don't really know what that word means. But neither of them are like so interested in each other to actually do anything about it. I think that makes a lot of sense, because if you were to put these two people in a room together at the point when you meet them, when they're still kind of surface level, that would be the most boring conversation known to man. Oh hey, isn't summer good? Yeah. I love tanning. Me too. They both do have this kind of hidden depth to them, but it seems like, they're just not the right people to unlock that in each other. That's the player's job. So between the two of them, it doesn't ever become a real relationship. So how can they be exes? I don't know. Do you know? Let me know in the comments. They also dance together at the flower dance. So in terms of gifts, Hayley loves sunflowers, pink cake, and coconuts. With the pink cake, there's a fun little Easter egg type thing. So in Stardew Valley, there's a few TV shows you can watch. There's a few stations. One of them is called The Queen of Sauce, where you can learn recipes in the game. So on the 21st of summer in your second year, the Queen of Sauce episode is teaching you how to make pink cake. And the TV says, a viewer from Pelican Town wrote to me recently. Let's see. Her name's Hayley. She wrote, I tried your pink cake last time I was in Zuzu City and I fell in love with it. Could you share the recipe on your next episode? Well, why not? It's a marvellous cake. And you'll never guess the secret ingredient. Melon. Melon. Which is just a cute little detail. It rounds out the world, Where'd all the time go? It's starting to fly. So for dislikes, Hayley dislikes all fruit and all vegetables. And also holly. She also dislikes all eggs and all milk. Her sister Emily is very into health food, and Emily's also the one in charge of the cooking, so Hayley has some lines about this as well. Emily usually cooks dinner, but she makes weird stuff like quinoa. For 5 years of my life, I pronounced it quinoa. So she's a sweet tooth kind of girl. She's kind of a picky eater, which makes sense with her personality. She's kind of picky. She's got high standards. She's judgy in terms of food as well as people. So for hates, she hates prismatic shard, which is weird because literally every other character in the game loves prismatic shard. I was trying to figure out why she could hate it, and I thought maybe it's because she knows it came from the ground or from the outside, and so it's dirty. But she really likes shells, and shells come from the ocean and you find them on the ground. I don't know. One of life's mysteries. These are the questions that keep me up at night. In terms of age, we don't have a ton of information to go off. We're mostly just going to go off of vibes and the fact that she's Emily's younger sister. So vibe-wise, Hayley's giving similar to Alex. She doesn't have a job. The devlog references how she was recently in high school. She doesn't go to the saloon, but this might be more of a personality thing. It's kind of dark in there. Probably kind of smells. No offense, Gus. But she just in general gives a more youthful energy. I spent all morning doing my hair. Now the rain could mess it up. Life is hard sometimes. That's not a person who's ever had to pay a bill, right? So I think reasonably we can say, lower limit, she's 18, upper limit, she's 25. Again, the ages are left intentionally vague. Personal opinion, 20 to 21, but we can't be certain. So it seems like a lot of people don't like Hayley because of how she treats you when you first meet her. We've been through a little bit of her, rude dialogue already, but we'll read some more just to emphasize the point. Ew, you're all dirty. Do you wear those clothes every day? Yes. I didn't hear you. I'm thinking about something else. Something smells weird. You've been working on the farm, huh? So she calls you dirty and stinky. She doesn't really pay attention to you. A lot of people describe her, as a mean girl. I just want to give my 2 cents on this, or I guess the British version. My 2p. Hayley Defender has entered the chat. So I would say there are differences between being rude and being mean and being blunt. I did Google it. Being rude tends to be having bad manners and being impolite. Being mean is deliberately insulting someone. And being blunt is more speaking your mind with no filter. So I don't think Hayley is mean. I think Hayley is a combination of rude and blunt. She says when you first meet her, if it weren't for those horrendous clothes, you might actually be cute. That's kind of a backhanded compliment, really. So I think this is rude. She's not thinking too hard about the unwritten social contract of it all. She's just speaking her mind without, necessarily shaping those thoughts into a socially acceptable way of communicating. She's not trying to compliment you. She's not trying to insult you. She's just commenting on you. Those are her thoughts. So it's also kind of blunt, you know, because there's no filter. So we'll go back to that line we read before. Nice makeup. Wait, are you even wearing any? I'm bored. So there are a few different ways that we can read this line. Number one, she sees that you're not wearing makeup and she decides to make fun of you for it. Nice makeup. Wait, are you even wearing any? I'm such an idiot. Number two, she looks nice today. Must be the makeup. Wait, she's not even wearing any. So that's kind of like a compliment. But I think it's the third option. You know when you see someone and something's different about them, like they have a new haircut, and you just automatically say, oh, nice haircut, even when you haven't like had the time to process what you think about it, or you might not like it. Hi. If something jumps out to you about a person, you tend to just be like, oh, I like your thing, just out of instinct instead of being like, look at your haircut. So I think in Hayley's head, it's kind of like, there's a face. There's a person's face. And so she just automatically goes, nice makeup. And then afterwards, her thoughts kind of catch up and she's like, oh, she's not wearing makeup. And I think this is backed up a little bit by the fact that she also says, I'm bored. She's just kind of standing there. She's just looking around. She's trying to find something to like entertain herself. And it's the same with the boy version of the line about the shoes. Nice shoes. Are those made out of plastic? I'm bored. So she just notices the shoes. She asks a question about them. I just don't know how much intention there is behind a lot of the stuff that she says. We said already that she comes across as quite superficial, and I think that she just talks without really thinking a lot of it through. I could really go for a cupcake right now. Do you need something? I'm feeling an urge to go shopping. Ugh, I wish there was a mall here. Like, these are thoughts that have just popped into her head. They're cravings, they're urges. The devlog says that she's self-centered, and I think that this is kind of at the root of it all. Her world just kind of revolves around herself. She's a bit judgy, sure, but I don't think that she's necessarily mean-spirited. I think it's a lack of thought that goes into her words instead of necessarily malice. You know, the devlog says that she was wealthy and popular in high school. She's kind of floated through life so far without any issues. She's very privileged. She hasn't had to put a lot of thought into things. She hasn't had to work hard. I saw Hayley described on Reddit as like a little pupa inside a chrysalis that hasn't yet turned into a butterfly. And I agree. She's such a pupa. Huge pupa vibes. So let's get into her 2-heart event. Huge pupa vibes. Ow, why did I sit like that? Ow. So for the 2-heart event, you walk into Hayley and Emily's house. They're in the middle of an argument. Hayley looks annoyed, says it's Emily's turn to clean under the cushions of the sofa. Emily says she's being childish, because she herself does most of the work in the house. This is when the player enters. Hayley calls you that new farm boy. Emily's like, he has a name. Fuck yeah, Emily. Hayley says you'll understand her point of view. Emily reluctantly gets you involved. Explains the situation about the couch cushions. Then you get a choice. Stop whining and just clean it. Hayley, why not have this be your one weekly job? Emily, take the high road and do it this time. There's only one option that doesn't piss Hayley off and lose friendship points. If you pick stop whining, she obviously gets annoyed, she storms off and Emily has to clean them anyway. If you pick Emily, take the high road, Hayley thinks that you're saying she's being childish and she storms off and Emily has to clean them anyway. You have to pick the middle option to resolve the conflict. Hayley sighs, but concedes to do the job every week, so there won't be a reason to argue over it. Emily seems happy, thanks you for your help. Okay, so we get this look into Emily and Hayley's domestic life. Emily says that she does the majority of the chores. Hayley's complaining about being asked to do the same chore 2 weeks in a row, which shows us their dynamic as sisters and roommates. We're quite clearly not supposed to take Hayley's side here because of the dialogue options. You know, we can either tell Hayley she's being childish or we can tell Emily to take the high road. There isn't an option to say, Emily, you're being too demanding. Like, Hayley is written to be in the wrong. But is she? Who cleans under their couch cushions every single week? That's kind of insane. Maybe I'm just fucking lazy, but that seems excessive. This is the first of these kind of scenes that I refer to in my own head as the morality scenes. We'll go over a few more in the future. You know, there's one for Mary, there's one for Sam. They're the scenes where you have to make a choice, but there is one very obvious correct choice, and you're punished if you don't pick it by losing friendship points. And with this scene, I understand logistically why it had to be written that way. Narrative design tangent. Let's go. I feel like a lecturer now. Stardew Valley. So with Stardew Valley's narrative design, very few things have long-term or continuous consequences, meaning 99% of the time when you make a choice in the game, the only thing it affects is the dialogue that comes immediately after, and maybe you lose or gain some friendship points. So the thing with Elliot's book genre is one thing, right? That's notable. You know, in the two-heart scene, you chose romance, mystery, or sci-fi, and the game saved that. This kind of choice, it would be saved as something called a parameter. Can also be called a string. I'm sure there are probably other names for it, but that's, you know, what I've referred to it as. It's basically something that would then go into the code, and it would, you know, be called something like Elliot book genre, and it would equal mystery. There are a few more instances in the game where your choice is saved like that, but they're typically the outliers. Choices in this game aren't usually, you know, very meaningful, or they're not permanent. Little choices like you get in this scene aren't carried along. You know, Hayley's not going to mention to you next time she sees you about how she's now cleaning under the couch cushions. That would take a lot of work in the back end, would add a lot of complexity. And you know, this isn't a narrative focused game like, for example, like Baldur's Gate 3. This is how you build out a world of narrative design. This is how you add complexity. By saving those player choices or the player's actions and having all these conditional lines of dialogue or these storyline branches based on your previous choices. The more you save, so the more parameters you create, and the more you branch off of that, the more, you know, infinitely complex a game can become. So that's why a game like Baldur's Gate 3 is so responsive and complex, is because every little tiny choice you make, the game will create another parameter, and that's the kind of game that's, you know, built for that. That's the purpose of that game. Because, you know, when you do that, it feels like real life. It feels like you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, when things respond to the things that you do. In Abigail's video, we talked about the possibility of, you know, because she's interested in you, we talked about maybe she could have given you the bouquet, but that's one of those things that would add a lot of complexity. If that variable was introduced, if that was like a whole other branch that everything could go down, of Abigail being able to give you the bouquet, or of all the characters being able to give you the bouquet, that would affect basically every other piece of narrative design in the entire game. So it would add so much more complexity than just like giving her this one option. Are you still with me? Really getting into it today. So the heart events in Stardew Valley are mostly self-contained, and they're built so that they can be referenced quite easily outside of the scene itself, and so that the choices within them don't really affect anything else. So this two-heart scene, for example, I'm pretty sure never gets referenced again. The only reference to it is how Hayley continues to have dialogue about hating chores, and Emily continues to have dialogue about how bad Hayley is at chores. And this would no longer make sense if in this scene one of the dialogue options was something like, "Wow, Emily, your standards for a clean house are way too high. You need to chill out a bit." Suddenly all those lines about Hayley hating cleaning and Emily being better at it are kind of null and void. It would create a divergence point. You'd have to write Emily and Hayley a bunch of new dialogue about that one choice that the player had made. But framing the scene in this way, where there's one perspective the player can have, where there's one outcome, whether, you know, it's Hayley caving and cleaning the cushions or her storming off, it means that the linearity and the continuity of the dynamic between Hayley and Emily can continue on as normal. It's kind of like how, you know, at the end of an episode of The Simpsons, everything returns to normal, because otherwise you'd watch the next episode and be like, wasn't he an astronaut? Why isn't he working at NASA? You know, not returning things to normal would therefore affect every single episode in the future. So yeah, there is a choice in this scene, but the choice helps maintain that linearity. Option 1 is stop whining and just clean it. The outcome of this is Hayley is still in the wrong. She's bad at cleaning. Option 2, Hayley, why not have this be your one weekly job? The outcome of this is Hayley is in the wrong, she's bad at cleaning, but the conflict is resolved. Option number 3, Emily, take the high road. The outcome of this is Hayley's in the wrong, she's bad at cleaning. You see what I mean? It's choice, but it's within this narrow parameter. It's the illusion of choice. And that's fine. Most, if not all, games have to provide the illusion of choice at some point, just for practicality. We can't all be Baldur's Gate 3. Like, the insane amount of work and time it takes to create conditions and parameters for every choice the player can make would be too much for how many characters there are. And the fact that it's primarily a game about farming and not romance, and also the fact that it's made by one guy. I personally just have kind of a pet peeve for choices like this, where it's so obvious that there is one correct option. It was the same, for example, with Alex in the 5-heart scene. You know, you had that choice of, you're a genius, you're worthless, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. Are you going to call him a genius? Probably not. Are you going to call him worthless? No. You're obviously going to say we all have our strengths and weaknesses. Choices like this aren't really nuanced. I think that they don't really make the most of the space that they take up. So a good way to deal with the illusion of choice in a game like this, where you want a choice but you can't let the choice make a meaningful impact, is to use the choice to allow the player to characterize themselves. Stardew Valley does do this. So for example, at the Feast of the Winter Star, Emily asks you, "Player, What are you hoping to find under the spirit tree? Spirit tree is just like the Christmas tree. And you can answer her a new watering can, a jug of spiced mead, or a pair of stylish boots. And her line of dialogue is different based on what you choose. And this choice is never mentioned again. I'm pretty sure she asks you the same thing every year. But you see the difference there? With a choice like that, you get to think about yourself within the context of the game. She gives you these 3 options, these 3 different ways to characterize yourself. It's kind of like role playing. What would I want most? Or what would my character within this world want most? I think it's a lot more engaging and interesting than a choice where, you know, you can either be mean, you can be neutral, or you can pick the correct one. So if we apply this back to the 2-heart scene, God, this is a big narrative design tangent. So if we apply this back to the 2-heart scene, people seem to like it when I, suggested how the Elliot story could have been done differently. So I'll give an alternative for this as well. Once again, I'm not trying to rewrite the game. I obviously have a very high opinion of this game. Look at my wall. So you could have, Alien Hemily. So you could have it where the scene would be the same up to a certain point. Emily and Hayley are arguing about the same thing. Hayley tries to get you involved, but instead of being responsible for resolving the conflict, you could have 3 options like, I hate cleaning too, if my house isn't clean, I freak out, I don't like it, or I don't want to get involved. So with those 3 options, there isn't, an obvious correct option because it's not so much a black and white situation. You're being given an opportunity to characterize the player. And from that, you could still end up with the same resolution, the same linearity. So like if you picked option 1, I hate cleaning too, Hayley could be like, yeah, you agree with me, it sucks. And then Emily could say, yeah, I know it does suck, but it's just kind of one of those things you have to do. And then because of that, Hayley agrees to do it. If you pick the second option, when my house isn't clean, I freak out, Emily could agree with you. She could say, I really like having a clean house, it makes me more comfortable. And then Hayley could agree to clean because of that. If you pick the third option, you say you don't want to get involved, they could apologize for trying to rope you in, and they could resolve it themselves. If anything, that kind of choice would be more linear because it would always end up with Hayley cleaning the couch cushions. But the options are more diverse, they're more meaningful because you as a player get to characterize yourself and your own opinion instead of just telling them what to do. And you would learn more about their perspectives. You could learn about how Emily really likes keeping a clean house. You could learn also about how Emily also hates doing chores, but she acknowledges it's just something you have to do. Eric, if you're listening, take some notes. Please give me a job. Sorry. Anyway, end of tangent. Let's look at the scene. So as I said before, we learn more about Hayley and Emily's dynamic as roommates and as sisters. It's more of a parent-child relationship, really. Because, Emily's telling Hayley to do her chores. She mentions that she does the vast majority of the housework. Hayley's using the reasoning that she did it last week, which in isolation would be fair enough. If they shared everything equally and Emily was still telling Hayley to do it, then that would feel unfair. But with the fact, what Emily says about how she does most of the housework, it feels like Hayley is just using the fact that she did it last week as kind of an excuse, a reason to get out of the chore. So Hayley has some dialogue lines like, you look like you've been doing a lot of hard work. Why don't you take the rest of the day off? And she asks you at one point what you do on the farm all day, and whatever it is that you reply, she says, sounds like a lot of work. So when we meet Hayley, she's in this state of being quite labour avoidant, which fair enough. I don't dream of labour either, girl. But that kind of thing becomes an issue when it causes conflict like this, like it has between her and Emily. When you give the suggestion of it being her one weekly job, she does grumble about it, but she agrees, explicitly because then there won't be any reason to argue over it. So she obviously cares about avoiding conflict with her sister. She's just not a very proactive kind of person. Some people are more like Emily, keeping on top of chores all the time. Some people are more like Hayley, they'll leave it till the last minute, they'll only do it to avoid conflict, aka me. You don't want to see what the rest of this room looks like. And that doesn't necessarily mean that she's lazy or she's a bad person. I think Hayley just has her own internal system of priorities. It's also, I guess, intended to show her youth in that she's Emily's younger sister and they have this kind of parent-child dynamic. And this is something about Hayley that does change as we will go through her storyline. So I would argue that cleaning isn't something you just naturally get better at with age, but maybe that's just me. I seem to be getting worse. It also kind of ties into that thing we said before about how she's breezed through life so far. Emily asking her to help with chores is friction, and she prefers to live her life without friction. There's a line of Emily's dialogue that we went over in her video. I wish Hayley would get a job or at least contribute to cooking and cleaning. I think she's hoping to marry someone rich. What's more frictionless than marrying someone rich?
I would consider myself, frictionless.
It would essentially give her permission to just hang out all day. like she does now, right? It's also interesting to note what Hayley wants in this scene. We talked about this in the Emily video, that the two heart scenes tend to be kind of like an I want scene. Alex wants to go pro, Elliot wants to write a book, Abigail wants to go on an adventure, and then Emily was kind of an outlier to that because she didn't have a want. In this scene, Hayley wants to not do chores, to keep the peace with Emily, to keep that kind of frictionlessness, to keep her frictionless life. There we go. I think that's interesting because similar as to how it was with Alex, Hayley's is a journey of learning what it is that she actually wants. You know, Abigail and Elliot kept the same wants in their whole storyline, but Alex let go of the want that he had to go pro. And we'll see that it's quite similar with Hayley. Here in this scene, she's very passive. She doesn't have a lot of direction. Her only want is to hang out, to not have to clean, to not have to argue. It's more about what she doesn't want as opposed to what she does want. And we'll see that change and develop as we move through her heart events. Okay, 2 heart scene done. Baseline established. Pupa in the chrysalis. Let's see where she goes from here. So I just had a little tea break. I'm getting so much vocal fry today, I wonder if this will help. Just legitimising my Britishness. There's a point actually, I haven't had any comments yet asking why I have such a weird accent. My entire life people have asked me if I'm from Australia, New Zealand, America. Today I was in a taxi and the guy asked me if I was from South Africa. I'm just British. For the 4 heart scene, we're in Emily and Hayley's house again. Hayley's alone, trying to open a jar, but she's really struggling. The player comes over. Hayley remembers your name this time. Says you must be pretty strong. You can answer yes or no, which adds or subtracts 30 friendship points. I said yes, and she says, great, you shouldn't have a problem opening this jar for me. She gives it to you and you struggle for a little while, but open it. She says that you're stronger than you look, which makes the player a little annoyed. Then she says, thanks. Okay, so she's learned your name now. In the last scene, she called you farm boy or farm girl, but now she's made the effort to call you by your actual name, which could be intended to show growth for Hayley, like she's trying, or it could just be that she didn't know your name last time, and now she does. Names are hard. This is backed up by her dialogue that says, your name is Player, right? I keep forgetting. So again, with this quote, it's not clear if Hayley's just bad at remembering names in general or if she's forgetting your name because she doesn't care enough to remember it. God, that is bad with the vocal fry. Remember it? Da Vinci. I think it's intended to be the latter. You know, she's a bit rude. She doesn't remember your name. Similar to how it was with Alex when he says, hey player, that's right, I remember your name. Like he's saying there, you should be honoured that I have paid enough attention to remember your name. How special you are. But Hayley keeps forgetting, so you don't get that honour. She doesn't care that much. And then here in the 4 heart scene, we can see that she cares about you a little bit more, because she does remember your name. She says you must be pretty strong, and she reacts quite negatively if you say no, because you lose friendship points. You'd think this would be a choice where there would be no effect on friendship, dependent on whether you say yes or no, because it's not like you're trying to hurt her feelings when you say no. You're not saying that you're not going to help her. You're just saying that you're not strong. You're being honest. If she said, will you help me? And you'd said no, it would make sense that you would lose friendship points. I guess from her point of view, it could seem like you're saying you won't help her when you say no. But when you do say no, she just asks you to help her anyway. She doesn't just say, forget it. So from this, I guess we can pick out that she just doesn't like the idea that you're not strong, right? If she reacts so badly to it. And she tells you at the end that you're stronger than you look, which is meant to be a compliment, which I guess, you know, could relate to Alex. They've got this flirty relationship. He talks all day, every day about how he does like 1,000 push-ups. So she's someone who likes the idea of strength, which I guess could tie into the whole 2 heart scene, how Emily's like a parental figure to her. Hayley is looking for someone to look after her, basically. Which is interesting when you think about all those lines of dialogue she has about how you should take a break from your hard work. You'd think that if she values strength, she would be asking you about all the hard work you do instead of trying to discourage you from it and acting like the hard work is a bad thing. It's this interesting dichotomy she has going on where she values strength, but she also values the leisurely lifestyle. It kind of feels like she has an idealized view about strength. So she says, don't you get tired of running around on that farm all day? Or whatever it is you do? I couldn't stand getting all dirty like that. You probably get a nice tan though. So the thing that turns her off about the farm work is the dirtiness, as opposed to someone like Alex who works out inside, which ties to her dialogue lines about, you know, you're all stinky and dirty. She hates the outdoors. And as we said before, Emily says that Hayley wants to marry someone rich. It's like at this moment in her character, while she's still a little pupa, she just cares about what you can do for her. She thinks farm work is gross up until the point where it becomes useful to her because you can open this jar. This all sounds a bit random right now, but it will become a bit clearer as we move further into her heart event that this kind of stuff is all like foreshadowing. Everything's there for a reason. So one more thing about the full heart event. Hayley has a piece of dialogue that she says specifically after you've seen this event. Hey, I found this new tool to open jars with, so you won't need to help me anymore. From a narrative design perspective, this feels like a way to kind of cap off the full heart event. Otherwise, you might just be wandering around the map, wondering if Hayley's struggling to open a jar at any point. Like, after this dialogue, we know she can do it herself. We can kind of put it to rest in our minds. But if we look at the line at face value, it's a line that's pretty dependent on tone. Is she saying she doesn't want you to help her anymore? Or is she just letting you know? With everything that's coming up kind of down the line for Hayley, I think this line is supposed to show that she does feel a bit of pride having some kind of independence. Like, she can't open jars, but with this tool, now she can, and she doesn't need your help anymore. And I think that that makes her feel kind of good. So we'll move on to 6 hearts. Hayley's walking around on the beach. She looks stressed. The player approaches. She says your name, tells you to come here, that her bracelet is gone. She definitely had it on when she got to the beach, but now she can't find it anywhere. Says she'll never find another one like it. You get a choice. Relax, I'll just buy you a new one. I'm really sorry. I chose I'm really sorry. She says maybe it'll wash up on another shore. She can't bear to think about it at the bottom of the ocean. Then she says, sorry, great-grandma. I lost your precious bracelet. Please forgive me. You get a prompt that she could have dropped it nearby. Then you get control of the player back, and you're able to move around the beach. The bracelet is over by Elliot's cabin. When you bring it back to her, she's overjoyed. She gives you a hug, she tells you you're a lifesaver, and thanks you. She blushes and says she won't forget what you did. So the name thing is definitely communicating something to us. She called you farm boy or farm girl in the 2-heart event, and then she wasn't totally confident what your name was in the 4-heart event, but this time she immediately called you by your name and called you over for help. So your relationship is strengthening. She's caring more about you. She knows your name, either because she deliberately tried to remember it, or maybe she's just thinking about you more. The dialogue choice here is quite interesting. At first, it is safe for us to assume that the bracelet thing is kind of silly. Like, why is she so upset? It's a bracelet. Kim, there are people that are dying.
Diamond earring came off in the ocean and it's gone. Kim, there's people that are dying.
So the dialogue choice of relax, I'll just buy you a new one isn't the craziest thing to pick if you're thinking that she's just lost some accessory. It does still give, wrong answer kind of vibes, but it's not something that you would necessarily completely avoid picking. It's possible that you would think that offering to buy her another one would make her happy. But the second dialogue option of I'm really sorry requires you to have a different opinion of Hayley. She's lost something, she's upset, so she cares about it. It must be special to her. She doesn't just want you to get her a replacement. To pick this dialogue option, you kind of have to believe that Hayley has a level of depth, that to be so upset about the bracelet, it has to be something important. Which, to be fair, you would be forgiven for not doing. She has a lot of dialogue lines where she's complaining about quite trivial things. I spent all morning doing my hair. Now the rain could mess it up. Life is hard sometimes. This town is so small. It sucks. I have to drive like 20 miles to buy any decent clothes. She can drive. There's no roads in this town. Anyway. But she's not upset about those things. And she does get frustrated in the 2-heart event and the 4-heart event, but not to this extent. So if you're paying close attention, you can tell that this situation is different to the other ones. And you would know to say, I'm sorry, instead of just promising to buy her a new one. And after that, you get confirmation that it was something important because she tells you that it was her great-grandma's. So even though this choice still gives kind of black and white, right choice, wrong choice, it's got some depth to it. You have to put some thought into it. And based on what your opinion of Hayley is at this point, you could easily pick the wrong one. It makes sense here that one choice would add friendship points and the other one would take away friendship points. Because it's kind of like, how well do you know her? Have you been paying attention? Good choice. I like it. The fact that she's upset is notable and shows that she really values these family bonds. We also saw that in the 2-heart scene where she was willing to make the cleaning her one weekly job in order to avoid conflict with Emily. As the synopsis says, she does tend to be, self-centered, self-obsessed, but that doesn't mean that things don't matter to her. Everyone's got people and things that they care about. And through these 2 scenes, it really seems like the most important things to Emily are family and her relationships. We see this also through how she reacts when you give her her bracelet back. She's so happy, she hugs you, she thanks you. Then she says she won't forget what you did for her. That's the last thing she says before the scene ends. And she's also blushing which, as I mentioned in the Emily video, is almost exclusively saved for romantic scenes or love confessions. So she feels really strongly in this moment that you've done this amazing thing for her. She won't forget what you did, which we can kind of connect to the whole thing about her forgetting your name. Like, if something is important to her, she makes an effort to remember it. Or maybe it's just easier to remember, like with your name. I think this shows that at this point, your relationship with Hayley is starting to cross that line from superficial to more meaningful, that you're becoming part of that inner circle of things that she cares about, along with, you know, Emily, her great-grandma. It's a really interesting scene. I think it's really interesting as well to kind of compare it to Alex. His 2-heart scene, he's all bravado and cockiness. His 4-heart scene, he opens up immediately, almost like he's desperate to do so. Like the cockiness is this deliberate facade that he just hates keeping up. But with Hayley, it takes until the 6-heart for us to see more of her. And it's not her opening up really. It's just that you happen to witness her in a moment where she comes across as more vulnerable. Like, her superficiality isn't a facade necessarily. That's just the way that she sees the world. That's part of her personality. Makeup and clothes and warm weather are things that are important to her. And they remain important to her even after you marry her. She's someone who comes across a certain way, but it's almost on the player if you assume that that's all there is to her. Like, it's on you if you assume that she's just another stereotype. She's like a valley girl. Oh my gosh, I love shopping. Oh my gosh, I love shopping. I wish there was a mall. I wish there was a mall in this town. I love summer. Stop. Stop. Rate my American accent. Don't actually, please don't. But just because she loves shopping, it doesn't mean that there isn't more underneath that she's not also a human being. So Hayley has a lot of interesting dialogue that you unlock at 6+ hearts with her. But we'll talk about that in a moment after we go through the 8-heart scene as part of a broader conversation. For the 8-heart event, you walk into the forest. Hayley's there taking pictures on a camera. She's surprised when she sees you, says the lighting is so nice she had to take some nature shots. She says she's been trying to connect with the outdoors a little more. She wants to know what it's like to be a farmer. It's a way of life she's never really thought about. She blushes and says, well, until now. She says the cows are cute, then she has the idea to take some photos with them, and the player can show her how to approach one. She sets up a tripod, sets it to shoot on a timer. Then we get this super fun little montage scene of the player and Hayley taking photos with the cows. Hayley starts off posing, then she approaches a cow. Then, with the player's help, she starts riding one. Then the cow throws her off, and we get this sprite of Hayley all covered in dirt. She looks upset, but then she starts smiling and giggles. She says that was fun, and the photos are hilarious. Then she says she's gonna go home and take a shower. The day after, you get a note from Hayley in the mail saying she had so much fun and is starting to understand why you chose the farmer's life. She hopes to see you soon. So photography is something that Hayley's always done. She takes pictures for a few hours at that same spot in the forest on Mondays in spring and fall, but her dialogue lines don't mention anything about it. If you approach her when she's with her camera, it just says, Hayley's too involved with her camera to notice you. There are some Polaroids on her wall, and you can find a book in Hayley and Emily's house about how to make a dark room, but that's pretty much it. She has a line of dialogue when you have 6+ hearts with her. I need a new hobby other than shopping. I've decided to expand my horizons. Maybe I should learn to play the mini harp? Is the mini harp a real thing? I don't know. So this line almost implies that she doesn't think photography is a real hobby because she says that shopping is her only hobby. She says in the 8-heart scene, the lighting was so nice that she had to come and take some nature shots. So it's almost as if it's second nature to her to the point where she doesn't value it as a hobby because it's just something that she does. I think a lot of people have that with their hobbies. You know, in the last video, I showed you guys the jumper I made for my fiance, and it wasn't that hard for me because like crocheting is my hobby, so it didn't really feel like a big deal. It kind of explains then why Hayley doesn't really talk about photography and she only talks about trivial stuff, because why would she talk about the photography if she doesn't think it's a big deal? It's interesting to take the perspective of Hayley must have other hobbies and skills and thoughts and feelings that she doesn't mention in her dialogue because she doesn't think it's relevant or interesting to other people, or just interesting at all. It's not that she's vapid or empty-headed, it's just that she doesn't find certain things interesting to talk about. So we've got Alex, who used Gridball kind of like a crutch in conversation, and then you've got Hayley, who does pretty much the opposite because she doesn't feel that need that Alex does to, you know, compensate for anything to try and impress people. You know, because like we said, she's been able so far to kind of float through life quite easily and maintain that popularity. You could also look at it from a self-expression angle. So self-expression was a big theme in Emily's video, and Hayley's the same. A 6+ hearts piece of dialogue is, I think I'm starting to realise that clothes aren't the most important thing, right? I still like clothes though. I mean, what's wrong with expressing yourself a little? So she's thinking about clothes in the same vein as Emily did, as a form of self-expression. It's also interesting that Emily doesn't invite Hayley to clothing therapy. I guess she would know that she's not a person who really needs it. This could be another reason why she initially comes across as kind of vapid. If she's finding self-expression through taking photos and her clothes, then she wouldn't really feel the need to express herself that much to you through conversation. I think she's kind of introverted, really. Think about Elliot and all his flowery lines of dialogue. You know, he's expressing himself as much as he can to you through dialogue. But Hayley takes her photos, chooses her outfits. She's self-centered, but I think in that way of it doesn't come naturally to her to share things with others. And it's only when you're really close to her like this, at 8 Hearts, that she starts connecting with you. She says she's been trying to connect with the outdoors more because she wants to know what it's like to be a farmer. So it's interesting that this is the first time that the player has really been shown to be affecting Hayley. The other scenes were kind of reminiscent of Emily in that it was really just Hayley being Hayley. She's definitely secure in herself in the same way that Emily is, but she does have a certain amount of growth to go through. And we see in this scene that the presence of the player, your relationship, has been prompting her to do that. She spent a lot of time talking to you about how the farm life doesn't appeal to her. She doesn't like to get dirty. She doesn't want to go in the forest. She might get a blister on her foot. But since the 6 Heart event, where you started to become a real subject of interest for her, you know, like we said, you started to cross that line for her. She's been thinking about you, and she's had that thought process of player likes the farm. This is something that player chooses to do with their time. Therefore, there must be a certain appeal to it, but she doesn't see that appeal. So in this scene, she's going out to try and understand it better. It shows a certain amount of empathy from Hayley, a certain amount of care, that she's identified a hole in her knowledge and she's trying to fill it in order to understand you better. And it's not just limited to this one scene. In her dialogue, we start to see a real change in Hayley, where before she had a line of dialogue saying, "My sister is so weird. Sometimes I wonder if we're actually related." Now she has a line of dialogue that says, "I talked to my sister for a while last night. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. You know, Emily's not actually that weird. I guess we have more in common than I used to think. Don't tell her I said so." And she also says, "I used to complain about this town being so small, but I've grown to like it. If it was much bigger, it wouldn't feel like a community. You're no longer a study group. You've now become a community."
Oh, that's nice.
So she's had these preconceived notions in her mind of things like her sister being weird, the town being too small. But here she's going through the process of becoming more open-minded. It's that same thought process we identified a minute ago of, if it's like this, it must be for a reason. Let me figure out that reason. Let me be open to other possibilities. It's a certain curiosity that we start to see developing inside Hayley. It's an interest in other people, specifically you, and also Emily. Hayley also tells you after the 6 Heart event, "Did I ever tell you I found another one of my great-grandma's bracelets in the attic? She was a really interesting lady." So we can see here that she's been thinking more about these things that are important to her, and she's shown that curiosity in going into the attic and seeking out more information about her great-grandma. You know, it's probably stinky and dirty up there, but at this point, it's worth it. And I think all of this does stem from the player and the way that your different way of life is rubbing off on her. Like after the 8 Heart event, Hayley says, "I guess living in the country isn't so bad. If I lived in the city, I might start to miss all the trees. Player, I think I've been hanging out with you too much." You as the player are someone who gets dirty and works hard and spends a lot of time in nature. And through spending time with Hayley, she's been forced to consider that as a valid perspective, when previously she's been quite closed off and judgmental to things outside of what she's used to or comfortable with. And therefore it's kind of opening the whole world up to her. You know, if your perspective is valid, then what other perspectives are there that are also valid that she hasn't considered? So that leads us to how Hayley is trying to approach a cow in this scene, when, you know, usually that would be something she would never do in a million years. She even climbs onto one, which she must know the risk of. And when it does tip her off, she just thinks it's funny, and she goes home and takes a shower. She has all this dialogue about not wanting to get dirty, but when it does happen to her, she realises it's not a big deal. She can just go take a shower, it's not the end of the world. She realises that expanding your horizons like this, trying things you'd never usually try, can lead to these fun and memorable experiences, which is reinforced in the note that she sends you when she says, "I'm starting to understand why you chose the farmer's life." It goes back to what I was saying about her valuing her relationships, because the things she expands her horizons on are her sister and you and the community. She's realising as well that trying to understand someone's perspective, engaging in their interests, can bring you closer together and help you to understand someone. It links as well to that dichotomy that I mentioned about how she admires strength, but she also thinks that farm work is gross and dirty. She had this notion that everything dirty is bad, even if that contradicted another one of her beliefs, you know, that strength is good. But now she's realised that dirt isn't the worst thing in the world. You could just take a shower. She's kind of resolved that contradiction. I think it's about comfort as well. Hayley likes to be comfortable. She likes it when it's warm. During winter, she says, it's too cold to get out of bed. So during winter, she'll stay in bed until around 10:30, which for this game is really late. You know, the player wakes up at 6 a.m. every day. She doesn't like chores. She only likes food that tastes good. She doesn't have a job. Like we said, she's living this frictionless, comfortable life. I saw some people on Reddit saying that they thought that Hayley had depression, mostly because of her unwillingness to get out of bed, her inability to do chores, her lack of interest in the world around her. And look, if that's your reading, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I do disagree with you, and I will tell you why, but it's just my opinion, you know. I think that Hayley is more hedonic than she is listless or depressed. Like, she's got this frictionless life where anything that is challenging to her or unpleasurable, like quinoa, she just throws in the bin, literally. She doesn't like to be cold, so she stays in bed. She doesn't like chores, so she doesn't do them. And I think it's because of how she was raised. You know, I think she was kind of spoiled. She was probably praised a lot for being really beautiful. Emily's most likely done most of the hard work for her. That's why you make your kid eat vegetables, you know. Otherwise they're going to grow up and see it as a punishment, like Hayley does. She has her comfort zone. She has this narrow worldview. And it isn't until you come along and challenge that she develops this curiosity for what might be outside of that zone. So I don't think she has depression. People can hate chores and love being in bed and not have depression. But again, my opinion. I hate chores and I love bed and I do have depression, so. So now we're at Hayley's 8 heart, we can look at her platonic arc from 2 to 8 hearts. This is pretty textbook character development, right? The pupa has left the chrysalis in the 8 heart scene. She flies! She's a butterfly! She's free! Hayley started off closed-minded, going down the path of least resistance. She agreed to the cleaning in the 2 heart scene in order to prevent conflict, because that's less friction than arguing with her sister every week. In the 4 heart scene, it's like she recognises that allowing new things into your life, like the player, can be beneficial. At this point, it's more in just a selfish way, you know, you can help her open jars. But in the 6 heart, it becomes clear to her that there's a real benefit to opening your mind and having new relationships and experiences. She wouldn't have been able to find the bracelet without you. And instead of seeing this in a more selfish way like she does with the jar, she starts to care about you. She develops this curiosity about you. And also in tandem, she develops this curiosity about the world and about her sister. In the 8 heart scene, she's leaning into this curiosity. She's learning more about you, she's trying new things, and she's finding that she enjoys them. She lets excitement into her life. And excitement is friction, so she's learning that friction isn't bad. Is what makes things interesting. And if we think again about her 2 heart scene being an I want scene, the 2 heart scene establishes that what she wants is to hang out, not do any chores. But it's kind of like a snowball rolling down a hill as we move through the heart events. She gets more and more of these wants. She learns more about herself. In the 4 heart scene, she learns, I want independence. I want people that I can rely on. In the 6 heart scene, she learns, I want to know more about my family. In the 8 heart scene, she learns, I want to engage with others and I want to see their point of view and try new things. She started off, as we said, as kind of a rude character, but now that she's out of her chrysalis, we get a real change in her. Yesterday, I found a seagull with her wing caught in a net. I set her free, of course. She looked so helpless, the poor thing. Maybe I'll donate some of my skirts to a charity this spring. I mean, I do have over 1,000 skirts. What? That doesn't sound like very ethical consumption, Hayley. She's definitely like addicted to Shein. So I think this links again to that idea of friction. It would be hard and kind of sad to help a seagull out of a net. It would be a chore to, you know, donate some skirts and then you'd have fewer skirts. But as she's becoming more comfortable with friction in her life, we can see more of her character. Her kind-hearted nature is starting to come out. I think it's always been in there personally, but yeah, her priorities are shifting. The last thing to talk about before we move on to the romantic aspects is that there are already kind of romantic aspects here. She says she never considered the farm way of life until now, and she's blushing. She also tells you at 6+ hearts, if you see Alex, could you tell him I'm busy today? Thanks. Since they had kind of a flirty relationship, it suggests that she's not interested in him like that anymore since the 2 of you have become so close. It could be read as platonic, since they both have that trait of seeming outwardly simple and talking about quite trivial things. It could be that Hayley is just not interested in having those kind of conversations with him anymore. Like we said in Alex's section that it's possible that he just talks to Hayley about Gridball. Maybe she doesn't want to sit there and listen to that anymore with her new expanded, opened mind. It's like that bit in It's Always Sunny where Charlie takes the smart pills or whatever and he just can't listen to the waitress anymore.
And I have come up with all of these great names things for a nail salon. Some of them are like the hand whisperer or finger fantasy.
But you would think that if that was the case, if it was platonic, that she would want to see Alex's perspective in the same way that she's trying to see the players. Like she would ask to play grid ball with him or something in the same way that she's trying to see the appeal of the farm life. But she just doesn't want to hang out with him anymore. So he can't have been that important to her to begin with. Otherwise she would be showing more interest in him as a friend. You know, he's not a person that's in that kind of inner circle of the things she really cares about. And there's that sense of one or the other. You know, now that she's close with you, she doesn't want him, which gives very romantic vibes. The same way as it did with Alex in reverse. You know, he has the same line of dialogue, but vice versa when he starts getting closer with you. So she also says, there are only two things I like about this town. One of them is the beach. The other is a secret. Giggle. Should I do a giggle? No, I hate that. That sounds like it should be in Call of Duty. She pretty much definitely has a crush on you from 6 Heart onwards, most likely because of the way you've like altered her brain chemistry at this point. Like you've obviously made a big impact on her, as we've covered, and so it makes sense that this would naturally develop into romantic feelings. Do we feel the same way? I think we do. My beautiful butterfly is giving me butterflies. Second cup of tea. Oh, spicy. When you're dating Hayley, her new lines of dialogue include, Player, you look rugged/pretty today. I like it. Player, I'm happy to see you today. Which very much goes against how she was when you first met her. She says you look cute without commenting on your clothes. She's happy to see you. She cares about you and she's not thinking about that superficial stuff anymore. She's not judging you. She also says, Player, can we go on a camping trip someday? The most exotic place I've been is Zuzu City. So this is a big change from her saying she's allergic to grass. So we can see... I don't care if they arrest me, I'm going to keep defending Hayley. So we can see that 8 Heart scene where she got really dirty changed her mind about nature. She knows now that getting a little bit dirty isn't the end of the world. And the part about wanting to go somewhere exotic, I think, emphasises her open-mindedness. She wants to experience new things. She also says, oh, hi player, do you like kids?
Hi kids, do you like violence?
So she's thinking about your future. It's not clear whether she's asking this because she likes kids or she just wants to know your opinion. If you do have kids with her, she doesn't have like a bunch of dialogue about always wanting to be a mum or loving kids. So I think this line more says, you know, she's still curious about you. She's curious about where your relationship will go. She wants to make sure that you're on the same page. Okay, now we're going to talk about the 10 Heart scene. Word of warning, I hate this scene. I tried to be unbiased. I failed. For the 10 Heart scene, you're in Emily and Hayley's house. A weird red light is coming from the door in Hayley's room that you've never been able to go inside. You knock on it. Hayley tells you to come in, but close it quickly behind you. You enter, and she says, you're here. She welcomes you to her new dark room. She asks you what you think. You get a choice. It looks great. What does it do? I've seen better. Definitely another one of those choices where you can be a dick, you can be neutral, or you can be nice. I said, it looks great. She says, thanks. Then she asks what you want to do. You get another choice. Offer to help decorate the dark room, make an excuse and leave, try to kiss her. Now I definitely picked the wrong option. I chose to offer to help decorate the dark room. Hayley says, okay, looks kind of annoyed. Then she says, that's the best thing you can think of doing right now? Here, in this small dark room with me? Interesting. And the scene ended. I talked to her afterwards and she says, well, the dark room looks great now. Thanks, player. So you're supposed to pick, try to kiss her. But that option was just giving me bad vibes. Maybe it's her expression beforehand. If she used the blushing portrait, I probably would have picked, try to kiss her. But right before you try to kiss her, she uses this annoyed looking face. So it didn't give me the vibe at all that it was the right time to try to kiss her. This face is literally called Hayley_concerned. Concerned that you're going to try and kiss her? I don't know if that's just what the wiki calls it, but that's definitely not a kiss me kind of face. And also the option is called try to kiss her. And I don't really know how to put this part into words, but try to kiss her just gives me bad vibes. It makes me think of like complaining to one of your friends saying he tried to kiss me. It doesn't make me think of positive outcomes. It just really didn't read to me in the moment as the right option to pick, which I think shows the problem with giving the players like a right and a wrong option. If you keep picking the right one, then there's not really an issue with it, but it just takes you picking the wrong one time for me to feel dissatisfied and like kind of annoyed at the game. I think a better way of handling it would have been you can still pick to offer to help her decorate the dark room and she can still get annoyed, but if you pick that, then you actually do it, and we can skip forward to when it's done. And she could say that same line of dialogue of, well, the dark room looks great now, thanks player, with her annoyed face. But then you could get another choice to kiss her or not. Or maybe she shares her feelings with you then. She tells you, you know, I thought you were going to kiss me, I wanted you to kiss me. It just feels very punishing for me to have been playing with the specific mindset of like, I don't want to make her uncomfortable, and for that to be seen as wrong. You could also change the text of the choice. You know, you could ask Hayley, do you want to kiss or can I kiss you? Instead of try to kiss her, you could offer Hayley some agency. It's frustrating with these 10 heart scenes how there are so many different standards. Like with the Alex scene, you can tell him, I'm interested, I'm not interested. In the Elliot scene, he kisses you, you tell him to stop, you don't tell him to stop. In the Emily scene, you don't get a choice whether to share that sleeping bag with her or not. But this one with Hayley, I went into the scene fully intending to get the romantic option, but I just misread it and I ended up missing it. And sure, I guess that's how life goes, you know, you misread things. But it doesn't feel like it was intentional in that way. It doesn't feel like that's what it was trying to portray. It feels like I made a mistake. I don't feel like I gained anything from picking the wrong option. We said in Alex's video that the bouquet is an explicit indicator of romantic intent. And I said it's therefore kind of redundant to need to ask the player in the 10 heart scene if you're interested. And in this scene, it's kind of taking that point on board. It's assuming, you know, you've given her the bouquet, you're at 10 hearts with her, you should just know somehow that it's okay to kiss her. But I don't know that as a player because of all the other 10 heart scenes that I've played where you have to like tiptoe around that fact, where it's not automatically clear that you guys are in some kind of relationship. So for the 8 heart scene, we talked about how Hayley's recognizing that engaging in someone's interests brings you closer together. She spent the 8 heart scene trying to understand you, doing farm related stuff. Here would have been a great opportunity for Hayley to share her interests with you. And she kind of does. She shows you the dark room, but that's about it. You don't engage with it further. In making that choice of offer to help her decorate it, that was me trying to engage with her interest. I was trying to reciprocate what she had done in the 8 heart scene. You know, I was kind of following that through line, right? And I assumed it would be inappropriate to kiss her in that moment. Emily does her dance for you. You don't try and make out with her afterwards. Hayley rides on the cows. She doesn't try to make out with you afterwards. If you do kiss Hayley in this scene, she says, "Oh, player, I've been waiting so long for you to do that. One moment." And then she turns off the light in the room and you kiss. So she's been waiting for you to do that. She also provides no hints or clues that that's what she wants from you, that's what you should do. It ties in, I think, with what we said earlier about how she wants someone to take care of her, someone strong. She wants you to take charge. She wants you to make the move. This is likely due to what it says in the synopsis. You know, she was popular in high school. Presumably she was popular in a romantic sense also. She's beautiful. She's used to people chasing her, making the move, trying to impress her and like catch her. You're in this small dark room and she just assumes that you will take the opportunity to kiss her because that's what's happened in the past. She thinks she doesn't need to hint or signal anything to you. She can use her annoyed looking face because in her mind, you're just going to try and kiss her either way, whatever she does. It's that closed-mindedness coming back again. And that's another reason why I dislike that not kissing her isn't a valid choice. The only correct choice is to validate her existing worldview when her arc has been about doing the opposite. If you showed extra interest in the dark room, if you offered to help decorate it, she could be annoyed, sure. But I think she could also be surprised that you're actually interested in what she's showing you, that you're not just standing there and thinking about making out with her. You know, like we said, in the 8 heart scene, she's engaging with your interests, so it would track that in the 10 heart scene, you were engaging with hers. But I guess Hayley just doesn't really want to share this stuff with you. It seems like she doesn't invite you over. So when you arrive, she does say, "You're here," which slightly implies that she invited you, but with most of the 10 heart scenes, you get a note explicitly inviting you somewhere. So out of 4 previous characters, 3 of them, you get a note saying, "Will you please meet me at this place at this time?" So you would assume that if Hayley had invited you here, that you would have gotten a note as well. But you don't, so I think it's pretty safe to assume that she didn't invite you here. I think it ties as well into, you know, wanting someone to take charge. She doesn't seem like she would be the kind of person who would ask you out. But it's also showing that she's not being very active in sharing this hobby with you. She's mostly showing it to you because you just came along. It's not an active seeking of connection like it was with Emily in the dance, like it was with Hayley in 8 Heart. You know, Hayley probably thinks that what she's showing you isn't interesting. And offering to help decorate the dark room shows that you are interested. That's why I chose that option, because there's more to relationships than just kissing someone as soon as they start showing you something they're interested in, because there's connection to be found in engaging in those subjects. And that's what her story has been about up until this point. About curiosity, about opening your mind, about establishing connection. But here in this scene, it's not. It's like she's back to her 2 heart self and she's just thinking about superficial stuff. She expects you to know that you should kiss her and she gets annoyed when you can't just like tell. when you can't just read her mind. And that's really disappointing when she's had so much growth. It's like the butterfly has been shoved back into the chrysalis. Let her out. I just legitimately don't have anything good to say about this scene. I'm sorry, let me know if I'm totally misreading it, but it just really annoys me. When this arc so far has been so good at gradually letting you know that there's more to this girl than you would initially think, that she's deep and she's layered and she has all of these interests and passions. And then in this scene, she's just not deep at all. Anyway, I guess I'll ask her to marry me. Her 14 heart event is good, so we have that to look forward to. When you ask Hayley to marry you, she says, "I'm so happy. It's just like I always dreamed. It's okay. I know we can't have a honeymoon since your farm needs to be taken care of. I'm a farmer now too." So we can see through these two lines that her goals and her priorities are clear. She says she doesn't mind not taking a honeymoon despite always talking about how she prefers warmer weather. She embraces the idea of being a farmer. She's clearly grown fond of the idea through your time together. She says it's just like she's always dreamed. There's no way she always dreamed of not having a honeymoon and being a farmer, because up until recently she hated the idea of farm work and of the outdoors. So I think in this line she means she always dreamed of marrying someone who she loves, who cares about her, who helps her and who supports her in the same way that you have through her heart events. Someone who feels like a provider. And if that's what she's always dreamed about, then we can see that that depth was always there. It just needed to be coaxed out. Okay, let's get married. Oh, are those the wedding bells? Is that the right way around? I'm gonna check my previous videos. Shush, Fiona. So within the... Yeah, I'm good. Okay. Hayley's room in your house when you get married has her vanity, as well as some Polaroids and her camera. She'll spend time in the garden on Saturday mornings taking photos, and it's a hobby that she sometimes talks about. Good morning. Did you sleep well? I think I might break out the old camera today. The lighting is just perfect. She goes to visit Emily sometimes and she says, I hope Emily isn't too lonely all by herself. I should visit her again soon. As a side note, when you're married to Hayley, Emily says to you, I have to say, now that Hayley's gone, I've had a much easier time keeping things in order. Hayley and I get along much better now that she's moved out. I look forward to her visit. So it's kind of a win-win all around. I had that with my sister. We used to argue all the time and push each other down the stairs. But then she moved 3 hours away and now it's like, okay, when is the next time I'm going to see you so that I can count down the days and have something to live for? Hi, Joanne. Sometimes you just need a bit of space from someone. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, as we said in Elliot's video. Hayley's happy with her new life. I never thought I'd say this, but the country lifestyle really suits me. And she's unrecognisable when it comes to housework. I'm glad I've learned to enjoy cleaning. The house gets dirty very easily. It's satisfying to get everything squeaky clean. Can I have a kiss before you leave? Mwah. On the one hand, I'm kind of cynical about this idea that you can hate chores and then you just wake up one day and you love them. Not wanting to do them is something that you just grow out of. But if we take a more good faith approach to this line, I think it goes with the idea of opening yourself up to new experiences. She always thought that she hated cleaning, but now that she's tried it, she finds she actually enjoys it because, there's something she likes about it. She likes the satisfying nature of it. And it's also the idea that doing these acts of service for someone that you love makes them more meaningful. There's another quote about cleaning from Hayley. I'm just going to do some dusting over here. That should help you out, right? Phew, it's hot out here. It's a joke because you don't have to dust outside. You don't, right? Please tell me you don't have to dust outside. But it also shows that she's trying to help you out. She sees the chores as a way of helping you and contributing to your shared life together. And that's something that she could never quite get her head around in terms of Emily and their shared household. I think it ties into her lack of direction as well. She says, I felt like I had no direction in life before I met you. Now I have exactly what I want. So before she met you, she was living with her sister, no job, kind of just bumming around at the beach and stuff. Didn't really see the point of doing anything outside of her comfort zone. We had that 2-heart event where we established that all she wanted was for things to be easy. But now she's got a home, she's got a partner. And I think she sees housework as basically her job. Her direction in life is to make sure that the little home you have and the farm are doing the best that they can. I think acts of service is definitely her love language. It's like how if you go to a restaurant and your food is wrong, you would never in a million years complain about it. But if your more anxious friend, their food is wrong, suddenly your social anxiety is just out the window. Stuff is easier, stuff is more enjoyable when it's for someone that you love. Quick aside, so at the flower dance, Hayley's been the flower queen for the last 5 years. Don't ask me what that means. I don't know. I think I will do a video at some point going through all of the festivals, but right now, I don't know. But at the flower dance, if you're married to Hayley and you ask her to be your partner, she says, my days of being flower queen are over. So it's a bittersweet dance for me. But yes. What the hell is this flower dance about? A married woman can't be the flower queen? I know it's some kind of fertility ritual or something, but why does the flower queen have to be single? It's so strange. It gives me huge Midsommar vibes. There's also some suggestive elements to some of her dialogue. Are you done with your work for the day? I'm ready to have some fun. But if you're tired, I understand. You look like you've been working hard, dear. Let me help you de-stress. Oh, I'm glad you're back. It's so cold in here by myself. Are you almost ready to shut off the lights? Shut off the lights kind of is reminiscent of the 10 Heart scene, how, you go to kiss her, she turns the light off. Like, none of that is explicit, okay? I know that. But it's fucking Stardew Valley. Of course she's not going to be like, do you want to have sex? The most suggestive dialogue that Hayley has is at the Feast of the Winter Star. Me? Oh, I'm thankful for... How about I just show you when we get home tonight? There's no point to me pointing this out. I just wanted you to know. Player's getting it on the regs. Okay, I have to go do a thing, so the lighting's going to change. Bye, I'll miss you. I'm back. 14 Heart event. So Hayley's 14 Heart event starts with a scene without the player. Very Emily-esque. Hayley's in town, going into Emily's house. And she overhears a conversation between Jazz, Vincent, and Penny, who's their teacher. Jazz is saying the cover fell off of her maths book. Penny takes a look, says their books are falling apart. They're too old. But books are expensive, so they'll have to make do with what they have. Vincent asks if that means he doesn't have to do his homework. Hayley then goes into the house. The next day, when you enter your house, Hayley talks to you, says she has an idea. She wants to get everyone together for a charity cake walk. She says it's like musical chairs, but everyone wins and gets cake. It'll be on the next sunny day in the town square. She asks you to bring a chocolate cake. You get a choice? Yes? Yes, begrudgingly. I picked yes. She says, great, meet you there tomorrow. Then she kisses you. On the next day that it's not raining and you have a chocolate cake in your inventory, the final part of the event happens in town. You give Hayley the cake, she says thanks. She's happy with the turnout. The townspeople are doing the cake walk. Basically, they're walking over these numbers on the floor. She blows the whistle, they stop on the numbers, and the numbers are assigned to cakes. So you win a cake. Then there's a long period of handing out each of the cakes, which isn't super relevant, so I'm going to kind of skip over that a little bit. She hands out the cake that you gave her last, makes a big deal out of it, calls it deluxe, and calls Pam lucky for having won it. She thanks everyone for joining. They raised over 5,000 G. George asks what the money's for, whether Hayley is buying a new purse. Hayley says it's for Penny, that she overheard the conversation about the school books and thought they could use some help. Penny is happy, tells the kids they're getting new books. Jazz is happy, Vincent is a bit bummed. Penny says thank you to Hayley, and she also says thank you to you. Then Robin makes a joke to the mayor about business tax. Okay, just while it's recent in our minds, I don't like that joke about business tax. It's just not funny. It just reads to me as lampshading the idea that why didn't the council pay for the books? It just feels kind of forced. I don't know, I just don't like it. Not funny! Okay, first of all, it's notable that Hayley was even listening to Penny's conversation. She's spent a lot of time so far being quite self-obsessed and not really listening to you or to anyone. But now she's walking around town with her ears open, kind of open to the experience of things going on around her, not just stuck in her own head. Come here. I don't think we're going to get a cat visit today. He's not interested in me. I'll walk a lonely road. So after overhearing this one conversation, Hayley decides to set up the charity event. The fact that it's a charity event is interesting as well. In Alex's 14 Heart scene, he just straight up asks you, can I have 5,000 G? So the same thing could have been done here, Hayley just asking you for it and then giving it to Penny. But she makes it more of a community thing, which reinforces that idea discussed earlier that now her opinion has changed about the town. She likes that it's a community. She's realised that these bonds are important and that sharing and experiencing things with others is what life is about. So she organised this event, she got everyone to make a cake and get involved because that's what she wanted to do. That's what makes her happy. It shows that shift in her priorities and also a certain amount of independence because she does it all on her own. Remember way back when she got a new tool to open jars? It's kind of like that but on a bigger scale, the pride in doing things for yourself. That choice of yes begrudgingly is very funny. I like that decision because it's being more transparent about the illusion of choice, which is a good strategy to still make the choice entertaining, even though it's not meaningful. If you pick yes begrudgingly, she says, what's up with the snarky attitude? Fine. You're going to show up tomorrow with a chocolate cake, or else you're in the doghouse. You like that better? which is so interesting because it's also laying bare that illusion of choice. She's admitting, okay, you don't have a choice, you're doing it, or you're in trouble. And she's not a person who asks for things from you a lot. She asked you to open a jar. That's kind of it. She knows what she wants in this scene when she's asking this from you. You know, she's got that direction we previously talked about. So she's willing to be quite firm with you in order to get it. It shows a confidence in herself, in her idea. The cakewalk scene itself is pretty simple. It's entertaining, but from an analysis perspective, there isn't really that much to talk about. You know, it goes through all of the townspeople, all of the different kind of cakes they made, which is kind of interesting. Hayley gives the money to Penny. Penny thanks her. Penny also thanks you, which feels a little bit pandering to the player, because all you did was bring a cake. Loads of other people brought cakes. She doesn't thank them. But the event goes well. Hayley seems happy about it. She's obviously capable of organising this kind of thing because it goes off without a hitch. And it raises the money, showing her capabilities and her intelligence. So overall, I think the 14 Heart event is to show how much Hayley has changed as a character. She hears about the school books, so she organises this charity event to raise money for them. It's a kind, selfless thing to do when originally Hayley was quite a selfish, more self-obsessed character. Personally, I don't really think she was that selfish. If she was selfish, she wouldn't have agreed to clean the couch cushions every week just to avoid a conflict with Emily. Maybe that was her being selfish though. Maybe she was thinking about how much she didn't want a conflict. But this scene shows that she's more willing to do things for others, that her priorities have shifted and she's valuing these community bonds. And she finds joy in making other people happy. She's found that direction in life that she was looking for in terms of living on the farm, and she gets happiness out of her acts of service for you. And now that's started to extend out into other aspects of her life, into acts of service for others. You know, the service for the community, raising money for the books. It's the effort of the thing. She had issues with effort, which is why I think a lot of people call her lazy. But she just didn't see the point in a lot of things. Why clean if you don't enjoy it? Why do anything if it's not comfortable? But it's like she's learned about delayed gratification. She's organised this whole thing. It was probably super annoying, a lot of work, but at the end here she ends up happy that she's done something nice for others. She's changed so much. I really like this scene because it shows that the butterfly is officially out of the chrysalis. And it's beautiful. Or as Elliot would say, it is resplendent. But importantly, Hayley hasn't changed too much. Like Emily, she was never unsure of herself, but she was just unsure of her direction in life. Hayley still retains a lot of her original personality when you get married. Looks like a good day to work on my tan, don't you think, sweetheart? I can't go outside today. My hair will go limp. Forgive me, dear. I want to look my best for you. We've got to make sure the farm is cute. That might be important. Right, honey? But you can see in all of these quotes that she's incorporating you into it. So if we directly compare two quotes, before she would say, I'm going to get such a nice tan this summer. And now she says, looks like a good day to work on my tan, don't you think, sweetheart? We can see that she's expressing essentially the same idea here, but the quote within marriage is more like open-minded. Before, she would just talk to you about whatever she was thinking about, and she was usually thinking about herself. But now she still has the same interests, she still has the same thoughts, but those thoughts are more broad and they include other people, usually you. So to conclude, through her relationship with the player, Hayley had her horizons broadened. She found that curiosity in herself to think about things from other people's point of view, to respect others as people who make their own choices. She doesn't so much come out of her shell as she does, find that direction in life, which makes her more able to be herself. It's kind of a coming of age story in the end. She goes through this real character development, but while she does change, it's clear that those elements to her were always there. She just needed to mature a little bit and understand the world a little bit more. A lot of people don't like Hayley because of how she is at first, but I hope that, I've made my point. I hope it's clear that she's not just a mean girl. I truly never think that that was her intention. I think she just didn't care about you. She doesn't care for pleasantries. Here on this channel, we stan Hayley. We love a rude to loving pipeline as well. I think I just like people being rude to me. Maybe I've got issues. So, Hayley's summit dialogue is, giggle. Should I giggle? I don't know. No, that's horrible, that's horrifying. Okay. Giggle. Oh, it's just that, as a little girl, I always dreamed that one day I would climb to the summit with my true love and share a kiss. So cute. It's similar to her engagement dialogue in that it's clear that her dreams she's had for a long time aren't to do with material things. They're to do with these feelings of deep longing and yearning for a true love. So yeah, she's always had depth, but her relationship with you has made it so it's not quite so deep down anymore. So it kind of sucks that we have to divorce her.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Not such a true love anymore, huh? Hayley's divorce dialogue is really interesting. I'll really be fine on my own. But thanks for the memories, player. Why are you still clinging to me? Go live your own life. This is like the nicest divorce dialogue in the whole game. It's the most emotionally mature. Even Emily, who, as we've established, doesn't have a negative thought in her whole melon, tells you that you broke her heart. You'd think Hayley would be the same since she told you that you were her true love. But this dialogue shows her change. It's not like she reverts to a pupa when you leave her. She's still that more independent person. It's like you leave her, she probably spent a day eating cake and sobbing. But then, you know, she realised that she's going to be okay. Her arc was pretty player-centric, you know, unlike Emily, you did make a big difference to her. But when you're gone, those changes are still there. And she has the emotional maturity, she has the perspective to be like, I'll be okay. It's also interesting to note that she doesn't have any marriage heart-dependent dialogue. No low hearts dialogue, neutral high hearts dialogue, according to the wiki at least. And I think this also emphasises her independence. She's not dependent on you for her mood. She seems pretty happy consistently in your marriage, and that continues outside of your marriage as well. She's found this new independence and she likes it. And she encourages you here to live your own life in the same way that she's living hers. We love that for her. I love my rude wife. Okay, we have reached the end of the deepest dive into Hayley from Stardew Valley. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a little thumbs up. Thank you again to everyone who has subscribed, everyone who leaves a comment, everyone who likes, even everyone who watches the videos. I appreciate you. You! I appreciate you. Do you love Hayley? Do you hate her? Did you hate her but I changed your mind and now you love her? I hope it's that one. I hope I've changed some hearts and minds. I love Hayley. My mean wife. That's probably what I'll do in the thumbnail. I love my mean wife. Next video we will be doing Harvey. Such a nerd. So subscribe to my channel to catch that when it comes out. It's going to be a very nuanced video, I think. Kind of like the Elliot one. I love a bit of nuance. Nuanced opinions on my nerd husband. You know what, I just realised I went a whole video without mentioning Shane. I think I deserve a pat on the back for that. I think I just like people being rude to me. Okay, thanks for hanging out with me. Bye. Mwah.